Trying to see here if this may work. I'm not sure. All right, if you stuck with us through some technical difficulties, I greatly appreciate it. Let me know if everything seems to be working okay, because I have no way of testing it. Is it frozen? Are you getting anything going here? Does it look like it's live? Does the quality look okay? Let me know, because you got a little bit of a bonus episode. I got to test it real quick, but it seems to be that we are maybe up and running, if not perfectly, but maybe all right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the first break that we missed. Then we're going to come back. Thank you for sticking with us. I hope everything is running okay. Thank you for sticking with us. We're going to get to your viewer comments after yesterday's program. We have a lot to get to. The tariffs took effect. The 25% tariff increase on all steel and aluminum imports are taking effect. We've got a lot of just general updates. So stay with us. Let me take my first break. I apologize. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox.
Have you been unable to work for over a year due to a mental or physical disability?
Were you recently denied Social Security disability benefits? Great news. You may be eligible for money, back pay, relief.
If you've been pre-qualified and diagnosed with a recognized condition that prohibits you from working, our lawyers can file a claim to get your disability benefit.
Call us today and find out more.
Call now, 844-617-0440.
Do you want a new bathroom but don't think it's in your budget? Bath Planet is now offering special financing with no payments or interest for an entire year. Sit back, relax, and we will bring the showroom to you. Our certified design team will show you hundreds of color and pattern options and work with you to build your dream bathroom with a price good for an entire year. Go with the company that people trust. Bath Planet, 2 locations serving the entirety of the Twin Tiers. Call today.
From laminate and vinyl to tile and wood, Floor & Decor has more options for pros, homeowners, and anyone looking for the right look at the right price. Your next beautiful space is at Floor & Decor.
If you measure your lawn by the acre, mow it with the #1 selling diesel zero-turn mower series for more than 5 years. With comfort, with durability, with the Kubota ZD. ACS deck technology for improved cutting performance, responsive and durable shaft drive transmissions, hands-free hydraulic deck lift, and all-day comfort. No matter how you measure your lawn, the Kubota ZD delivers. Visit your local Kubota dealer today.
AJ's Outdoor Power Equipment has 2 locations, Mansfield and Coudersport, PA. AJ'sOutdoorPower.com.
Every Judge Mathis presides.
Don't you ever form your mouth to talk to me like that.
Is another day when someone gets what they deserve.
What's wrong with you?
Mathis Court with Judge Mathis.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back. Thank you for everyone writing in and saying that it seems to be back up and running. We just had a computer meltdown this morning. And I had a meltdown too, trying to get it fixed. But thank you for bearing with us. You got a little bit of a bonus episode. Let's go to some viewer comments from late yesterday and early this morning. Hi, Frank. Regarding Cuomo and the money that he has usurped from us taxpayers to cover the cost of his legal expenses, my take is that allegedly, we'll say, harassing women was not part of his job description as governor, and that therefore he is not entitled to legal expenses for his personal affairs. This is in reference to the story we had for you yesterday, that taxpayers were on the hook about $60 million for Cuomo's legal expenses. I would say that you have a great point there. I'm obviously not a lawyer, but it does seem that we should be able to get some of our, if not all of our money back. Now, the argument is that he was governor at the time, so then therefore we have to pay for his legal defense. That is the argument, and that's what has been happening. The viewer continues to add additional thoughts. The lawyers he has hired to protect him from himself are way, way overpriced. Also, New York State has lawyers as employees. So if anything, Cuomo should have utilized them to defend him and not a private attorney. Yeah, a lot of people made a lot of money off of that, $60 million, and it caused some of the women that accused him of harassment to drop their case, not because they didn't believe they were harassed, but because they couldn't afford to go up against a blank check from New York taxpayers. So you raise a very, very good point. Comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. I've been under the weather, so I've missed my morning Frankly Speaking fix for a few days. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I hope you're feeling better. As for the corrections officers, I just wondered if you know of any recourse for those officers that are fired. Legally, if there's any way they can be represented to get their jobs back. Well, I'm going to take it a step further, because if you saw the news yesterday, and we're going to get into it heavy, that Governor Hochul is putting in provisions that the fired corrections officers cannot be hired by the state in the future, as she is seeking out federal employees that have been fired because of DOJ and hiring them on as state workers. She is making sure that the corrections officers that were fired cannot then work for the state. We're going to talk about it, but thank you for that comment. And finally, two last comments. I'm so disappointed and discouraged by the latest rejection from the Supreme Court in regards to the $2 billion in foreign aid that was exposed by DOJ and has now been blocked. When you lose faith in the FBI, the IRS, the FCC, judges, and especially the Supreme Court, it's not a good thing and furthermore dangerous, in my opinion. Thank you very much. And last comment from a viewer earlier this morning, and then we'll get to others as they come in. NPR funding should be cut. NPR is propaganda. That's been a debate for a long time. Not a debate even. I mean, it's well known that they have a far left bias and that your tax dollars are going to push that bias. I'm not sure what will ultimately be done now that the Republicans are in control, but I know the FCC is looking in, and the new chairman of the FCC is looking into NPR and PBS. Okay, quickly, because we are running late. Ready? The center-right party has won most votes in Greenland's parliamentary election. The center-right Democratic Party won the most votes in Greenland's parliamentary election. A surprise result as the territory went to the polls in the shadow of President Trump's stated goal of taking control of the island, one way or another. Both the Democrats and the second place party, Point of Orientation, favor independence from Denmark, but they have differences on the pace of change. The upset victory over parties that have governed the territory for years indicates that many in Greenland care just as much about healthcare, education, cultural heritage, and other social policies. The unanticipated results came after huge crowds streamed into the polling station in the capital throughout the day, warmed by sunny skies. Exhausted voting officials closed the poll well after the planned 8 p.m. local time on Tuesday to make sure everyone in line got a chance to cast their ballot. Prime Minister Mute Borup Agad called elections in February, called elections a bit early, saying the country needed to be united during a serious time that is unlikely anything Greenland has ever experienced. Okay. Trump's 25% tariff increase on all steel aluminum imports has taken effect early this morning. I know I'm going to go through some things quickly because we almost lost the first full hour. And please feel free to comment if we do have any more technical difficulties. Ukraine did agree to the U.S. proposed ceasefire with Russia as Washington lifts intelligence and military aid holds. This is pretty early. This came out late yesterday. I know that President Trump is expected to speak with Putin after Ukraine agreed to the USA's ceasefire proposal. Very important, and I said Ukraine ceasefire. Just agreed to a little while ago. Now we have to go to Russia, and hopefully President Putin will agree to that also. And we can get this show on the road, Trump said. We want to get that war over with. All right, there you go. Whew. Some of the breaking stories from yesterday. We are going to talk about the corrections officers. There's a lot of information coming out there as that story unfolds. There are, as Mark said, good morning. Well, hey, good morning, Mark. I see there are guards still out there striking. Not many, but they are out there. Yes, there is still some presence there on the striking grounds, if you will. But there's a lot that unfolded since yesterday when New York State declared that the strike was over and that 2,000 corrections officers would be fired. So we'll get to that in a little bit. First, the House passed the funding bill ahead of the Friday shutdown deadline in what is being seen as a win for Republicans. Speaker Johnson overcoming that far-right opposition. The 217 to 213 vote to approve the Republican stopgap bill saw just one GOP defection, and that's Representative Thomas Massie of Kentucky. We're going to talk about him in just a moment. And now it amplifies pressure on Senate Democrats to decide whether to back the measure or trigger a spending showdown with Trump and risk a potential shutdown. So will the Democrats, who are always so very much opposed to government shutdowns, always put it in apocalyptic terms that you think it's the end of the world, will they play with fire? Will they shut the government down because they will not negotiate or deal with Republicans? The House plans to immediately leave Washington and attempt to stick the Senate with a take-it-or-leave-it bill ahead of the March 14th deadline. But it's not yet clear whether Johnson's show of force will be enough to convince Chuck Schumer to stave off a shutdown. If there is a shutdown or we get very close to a shutdown, it is going to be fascinating to see how the media defends it. Because when it's quote-unquote Republicans' fault of a shutdown, the media, they get the sob stories. They show you the worst of the worst, when really it's all about non-essential employees. But at least 8 Senate Democrats would need to vote with the GOP to accept the bill. I think I've heard now it would probably be 9 because Rand Paul has already signaled, that he will not vote for the continuing resolution. Top House Democrats, led by Hakeem Jeffries, have led their own fierce whip operation and ultimately lost one of their own members, Maine Representative Jared Golden. Even a brief shutdown would introduce even more chaos and uncertainty at a time when our country can ill afford it, Golden said. My vote today reflects my commitment to making tough choices and doing my job for the people of Maine. So again, the final tally at 217 to 213, Jared Golden, the Democrat, siding with Republicans, yet Thomas Massie, the Republican, siding with Democrats. Now, when we come back, we're going to hear what Congressman Langworthy had to say, and then there's a New York Post editorial board that responds to Representative Thomas Massie, and I'd like to get your take on that. Then there's a lot, the Department of the Department of Education fires more than 1,300 employees and closes its offices for security reasons today. We'll talk about that. The anti-Semitic protests are in the news. We have a lot to catch up on, and I'm running late because we had that little technical glitch at the very beginning. So please bear with me. Let me take a break, and then we will be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, please stay with us.
Your tap water is delicious.
I know, right? It's this Culligan Smart drinking water system.
What do you think is going on in there?
I'm smelling a touch of chlorine.
Yeah, I'm detecting some PFAS.
I'm also getting notes of lead.
Perfection.
Sending it up.
Here we go.
Certified to reduce more than 70 contaminants. It's like having your own team of water experts. See the smart difference at Culligan.com.
Beat the dark days of winter and have a vacation from taxation with the Hustlesense Hot Tub. What better way to start or end every day than with hot water therapy and your very own Hustlesense Hot Tub. With every spot purchase, Hustlesense guarantees great customer satisfaction and the best service team in the area. Plus, with Hustlesense Vacation from Taxation sales event, free steps, free cover lifter, free music, and 0% interest-free financing. Ask about Hustlesense Chemical Auto Ship program and save even more. Stop in today and see why after 70 years it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hustlesense.
If there's one thing we like, it's choices. And your Ford dealer is the place to start. With a full lineup of vehicles and available powertrains. Get your ideal combination of power and capability with gas, hybrid, or all electric. But more important than the power you choose is what you choose to do with it.
Right now, returning lessees can get a Ford Escape for $199 a month for 24 months. Only at your local Ford store.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. So glad to be joining you as we had a best of running a little bit earlier on in the program, but we're back on track. Comment from a viewer: if you saw how the Democrats acted at Trump's address, I think we have the answer. They most likely will not approve that continuing resolution, that budget. Continuing resolution is probably the easiest way to describe it. Stopgap funding is another term for it. I'm with you. That's why I say I think it's going to be fascinating to see how the media reacts to it. If there is a government shutdown that you can pin the blame on the Democrats, that's what's going to make it interesting to watch. Congressman Nick Langworthy reacted to the continuing resolution to keep the government open, saying, despite Democrats' attempt to shut down the government, nothing they do will impede on President Trump's incredible and quick work fixing our country. House Republicans are committed to strengthening our economy, getting our $36 trillion debt under control, and ensuring the long-term strength of our nation. It's shameful that House Democrats have done nothing but obstruct this mission. I am proud to say that this continuing resolution reduces, then freezes spending for the next 6 months. This allows the president the time to continue to identify waste, fraud, and abuse of our tax dollars, which is one of my top priorities. A continuing resolution isn't a perfect solution, but it's our best course of action to keep the government open and functional, delivering the critical services that the hardworking American people pay for. So thank you to Congressman Langworthy. Now, the New York Post editorial board says that Representative Thomas Massie, who is the Republican that voted against the continuing resolution, they say he needs to quit grandstanding and govern, or get the, we'll say, heck out. Thomas Massie loves to play the purist, but somehow that means the Kentucky Republican keeps voting with the Democrats whenever the pedal hits the metal. The latest is Massie's vow to vote nay on a continuing resolution to avert a government shutdown. The continuing resolution cleared the House Rules Committee this week and was sufficiently fiscally hawkish to win support from even the Freedom Caucus. It's far from perfect, but that's what governing means. Taking wins where you can and compromising where you have to. For Massie, that's not enough. Rather than act like an adult, he prefers to endanger the bill. Remember, the GOP House majority is so thin it can only withstand one defection, and risk all the political momentum that is currently going that a shutdown would end. He posted, "Why would I vote to continue the waste, fraud, and abuse Doge has found? Yet tanking this continuing resolution will do nothing meaningful about dealing with government waste long term. Indeed, given that President Trump is the one who made Doge real and that a shutdown would be a huge black eye for him, Massie's nay is far more likely to hurt the cause he pretends to care about. The truth is, he just likes the attention. The playing the fly in the ointment is the only way for him to get that attention." He pulled a similar stunt during the crucial January vote to re-elect Representative Mike Johnson as Speaker, serving as a lone Republican no. And he has carved out his niche here, and this is who he's going to be. This is one of the fears that we had with such a thin majority in the House, that there would be the Massies of the world that would, in taking up the mantle of purism, or a purist, actually voting with Democrats and being a continued black eye for Trump if Trump is not successful, if the vote is not successful. He's done the same on foreign policy too, voting against the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act, a bill aiming to slap China for its crimes against the Uyghurs. Massie is, to use Trump's term for him, a grandstander. He's even laughing off the president's call for a primary challenge next year, since he's beaten 3 already. Maybe the 4th time's a charm, but one way or another, the GOP will have to find a way to repay Massie for his made-for-TV shenanigans. And that's really what it's all about. He likes getting the attention. He likes, and again, unfortunately, even though he's doing it supposedly under the guise of conservatism, he likes the attention it gets him on the mainstream media. And the pats on the back from apparently his Democrat colleagues, who he continues to vote with time and time again. Now, the Department of Education has fired more than 1,300 employees and closing offices for security reasons. That began yesterday. The employees received an ominous notice instructing them to stay home from work today. Today, we are beginning the process to cut the total number of staff at the Department of Education roughly in half. As part of the reduction in force process, 1,315 Department of Education employees have been laid off. The official noted that nearly 600 people have already left the department via voluntary measures, such as through the Federal Deferred Resignation Program and a separate department buyout initiative offered to employees earlier this month as the Trump administration works to streamline the agency. Another 63 staffers on probationary employment with less than a year of service time were fired last month. The official at the Department of Education said, "We are focusing on eliminating full teams whose operations are either redundant or not necessary for the functioning of the department," indicating 131 total teams will be terminated. Employees receiving termination notices will get 90 days of full pay and benefits until they are formally fired and will receive severance pay in the amount of 1 week's salary for every year of service up to 10 years and 2 weeks' salary for every year beyond 10 years. Quote, "We're going to have these folks roll over their responsibilities by Friday, March 21st. They will then go on paid administrative leave until the reduction in force is complete. They will be teleworking from tomorrow until March 21st. Then all of that is being done for safety reasons to protect the 2,183 employees that are going to remain after the RIF is complete." The official cited student test scores plummeting despite over $1 trillion in federal spending from the department since its inception as a reason for these dramatic cuts. We have an incredible leader in Secretary Linda McMahon, who has built a multi-billion-dollar global business and has handled restructuring several times before. And all of this is being done with a very careful eye towards making education better, reducing bureaucracy, and empowering the states to take charge of their own education decisions. Earlier in the day, DOE staffers in the department's Washington, D.C. offices were told their buildings would be closed for security reasons, as reports circulated that mass layoffs were imminent. Now, yesterday, Linda McMahon said this is the first step toward eliminating the agency. We know that was ultimately President Trump's goal, giving Linda McMahon the job, saying your job is to essentially get yourself out of a job. She was, I believe this was with Laura Ingraham. Laura Ingraham asked if the termination of nearly half of the department's 4,000-person workforce was part of a broader plan aimed at a total shutdown of the agency. Yes, it actually is, said Linda McMahon. That was the president's mandate. His directive to me clearly is to shut down the Department of Education. She said that Trump's administration understands that it will have to work with Congress to accomplish the president's goal, but that Tuesday's reduction in force plan is key to eventually abolishing the department. Quote, "What we did today was to take the first step of eliminating what I think is bureaucratic bloat." She said the department was mindful of keeping the good people at DOE so as to not interrupt funding for educational programs. We wanted to make sure that we kept all the right people, the good people, to make sure that the outward-facing programs, the grants, the appropriations that come from Congress, all of that are being met, and none of that is going to fall through the cracks. She dismissed the criticism from American Federation of Teachers head Randy Weingarten that Trump is planning to, quote, get rid of education and taking opportunities away from kids. McMahon stating, we're clearly not taking away education. The president never said that. He's taking the bureaucracy out of education so that more money flows to the states. Better education is closest to the kids. I think we'll see our scores go up with our students when we can educate them with parental input as well. So eliminating the bureaucratic bloat. As Jonathan Butcher writes, the teachers union bent the education department to their will. So shut it down to throttle their power. Randy Weingarten, who we had just mentioned, is really angry that Trump wants to close the U.S. Department of Education. And no wonder. The AFT, American Federation of Teachers, and its sister union, the National Education Association, have reaped the benefits of the agency's steady growth since 1980. So calls to close it directly threaten both unions' bottom line. Every increase in Washington's education spending helps union causes. for so many problems with the American education system, unions will claim that the trouble is a teacher shortage, then lobbying lawmakers for more taxpayer cash as a solution. Historically, that's been the pattern ever since the Education Department was established in 1980. Per student spending consistently increases, school officials hire more staff, and the problems persist. During lean economic times that disrupt the job market, such as the 2009 financial downturn or the COVID-19 pandemic, unions can decry any potential cuts to education as threats to student success. Yet no matter how many staffers are hired, achievement gaps remain. Test scores in math and reading today are at or near historic lows. Still, unions' messaging has continually convinced lawmakers to spend more. I know we have to take a break. And we talk about the union's role in the COVID-19 lockdowns for the students that set them so far behind. But over the last 4 decades, we've learned that more money for teachers' unions doesn't translate into better student test scores. It's time to focus our educational efforts on what will truly help American kids, not on what will line union leaders' pockets. All right, we got to take a short break. We are going to talk a little bit more about the education system. In the next hour, we're going to talk about the corrections officers. There's a lot of information coming out on that. The COs, I know Governor Hochul standing strong, doing everything she can to go after the corrections officers as she looks to hire laid off federal employees. She looks to punish corrections officers who went on strike and who they fired so that they can no longer get a job in state government. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the program. It's going to be back on track after a little technical glitch this morning, but we're glad that you stayed with us and you joined us. I see some comments coming in. We'll get to those in just a little bit, so stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
There are days I feel stuck in my head. Even on an antidepressant, lingering depression symptoms can make it hard to break through. I wanted more from my antidepressant. I asked about Vraylar. Adding Vraylar to an antidepressant significantly reduces overall depression symptoms better than an antidepressant alone.
Vraylar isn't approved for elderly patients with dementia-related psychosis due to increased risk of death or stroke. Report changes in behavior or suicidal thoughts to your doctor. Antidepressants can increase these in children and young adults. Report fever, stiff muscles, or confusion, which may be life-threatening, or uncontrolled muscle movements, which may be permanent. High blood sugar, which can lead to coma or death. Weight gain and high cholesterol may occur. Difficulty moving, tremors, slow or uncontrolled body movements, restlessness and feeling like you need to move, nausea, constipation, insomnia, dizziness, increased appetite, and fatigue are common. Side effects may not appear for weeks.
Vraylar, breaking through to relief. Ask about
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we broadcast live from the Hesselson studio. We're rushing on a lot of these topics this morning because we ran a little late with some technical glitches. So keep those comments coming in. And thank you for bearing with us. Okay, morning, Frank. Well, good morning. Did you hear that the USAID agency had destroyed thousands of documents? I did not hear that. I wonder what incriminating evidence was destroyed. Good question. I had not heard that. Comment from a different viewer. I was wondering if anyone else got a Chemung County 2025 Trump mandate survey, because I got one yesterday. I'm not familiar with what that is, so you have to give us a little more information. If anybody else received one of those Trump mandate surveys, I would love to hear from you. I want to know what that is. So if anybody else got one, let me know. We were talking about the Department of Education. This is actually through the Department of Agriculture, but they are pausing funding to the University of Maine system, a network of 8 public colleges in the state. The pause is in response to the state's recent refusal to comply with President Trump's executive order to keep transgender athletes out of women's sports. The pause is funding comes as the USDA reviews potential Title IX and Title VI. Is that what that is? Title IX and Title VI violations by the university amid the state's recent refusal to comply with Trump's executive order to keep transgender athletes out of women's sports. Trump reaffirmed his intent to punish states that continue to allow trans athletes to compete with girls during his March 4th address to Congress. So we are running through a lot. Now, we hopefully will have an opportunity this morning to talk about the anti-Israel agitator that ICE arrested and is threatening to deport. He was, according to the White House, he should be deported because of his pro-Hamas propaganda flyers. We may get to that because there's a lot of comments from various politicians, but I do want to get to New York State issues because that's not something we can ignore as we try to play a little bit of a catch-up this morning. So, again, thank you for bearing with us and joining us. Hour number 2 coming up after this. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox.
If there's one thing we like, it's choices. And your Ford dealer is the place to start. With a full lineup of vehicles and available powertrains. Get your ideal combination of power and capability with gas, hybrid, or all electric. But more important than the power you choose is what you choose to do with it.
Right now, returning lessees can get a Ford Escape for $199 a month for 24 months, only at your local Ford stores.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC or visit our website at WYDCTV.com. Elmira. Horseheads, Hornell, Bath, Watkins Glen. Big Fox 10 p.m. News, the first primetime local news in the Twin Tiers. Catch news from your area, weather forecasts, and local events. And visit our website. Hour number 2, sort of Frankly Speaking, here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We're broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Comment from a viewer. The Trump survey I got was to raise money for the Republican Party next election. Okay, well, thank you very much. That's what I assumed it was. Depending on how many organizations you're involved in, you get a lot of those probably. I know I do. I didn't know when it said Chemung County specifically if it was something more locally based, but thank you. All right, let's talk about locally based. Let's talk about the corrections officers. Governor Hochul yesterday provided an update on the future of New York State's correctional system following the end of the 22-day strike, creating a path to recovery, recruiting, and rebuilding the system moving forward, according to Governor Hochul. The end of the strike follows 4 attempts to an agreement. We know all about that. More than 10,000 security personnel are currently working at correctional facilities at this time, answering the call of duty to protect their colleagues, their communities, and the individuals in their custody. Over 6,000 National Guard service members continue to be deployed to maintain safety and security alongside the security and civilian staff. This is what Governor Hochul had to say. My top priority is the safety and well-being of all New Yorkers. And I have been working around the clock to end this illegal work stoppage and restore safety in our correctional system. We have taken unprecedented steps to protect public safety, and I'm grateful to the National Guard and DOCS personnel who stayed on the job, going above and beyond to protect their fellow New Yorkers. Today, we can finally say this work stoppage is over and move forward towards making our prisons safer for all, supporting our correctional staff, and recruiting the corrections officers of the future. Do you feel as if they have been supporting their correctional staff? Now, what we learned, just to show you kind of the vindictiveness here, As the striking officers' demands are unaddressed in the one-house budgets from the Senate and the Assembly in New York, Hochul is now barring fired officers from state jobs. So remember, as she's putting out ads in Washington, D.C., trying to hire laid-off federal employees, she is barring the fired officers from state jobs. With New York State on Monday declaring the strike over, lawmakers are still reacting as the state budget process moves into a phase many on the picket lines had hoped to use to their advantage. While always highly unlikely, a top-line demand of those on strike was a legislative repeal or at least significant revision of the HALT Act, which limits solitary confinement. We know all about that. As expected in their one-house budgets, lawmakers in the state Senate and Assembly took no action on the demands of those on strike. Instead, they moved forward with other corrections-related proposals, including the possibility of additional prison closures, changes to body-worn camera policies, and changes to time-served credits. Governor Hochul spoke on the prison strike for the first time, as I just mentioned her statement, with 75% of corrections officers back to work. Now, remember, the original watermark was 85%. If they could get to 85%, they would declare the strike was over and yada, yada, yada. They only got 75%, but what's 10% amongst friends? So bringing them back to work and firing 2,000 corrections officers. Thank God we were able to get this done, Hochul said. There are consequences when people break the law, and that means you're not working in our state workforce ever. There are consequences when people break the law. Do you have a feeling that she doesn't have that kind of tough talk when it comes to things like bail reform, when it comes to the litany of these laws that are put into effect that tie the hands of our law enforcement and coddle the criminals? This has been, well, that's one of the reasons why Lee Zeldin did so good against her in the campaign, because he talked about public safety when she doesn't want to address this. So now she's talking tough about breaking the law when it has to do with corrections officers striking for their safety when it got too much, as Sheriff Allard put it, an act of desperation, when they couldn't go on any longer. 24-hour mandatory overtime, the HALT Act, all these things turn into a powder keg. There are consequences when people break the law. We can talk about bail reform. We can talk about the young people because of the age laws now not getting punished, and many in gangs aware of that, so they are using that to their advantage. But now she gets talking tough. I'm tongue twisted this morning. Talking tough when it comes to people breaking the law. The governor's office said the ban, so again, this means that the corrections officers are, quote, not working in our state workforce ever. That's the consequences for having the audacity to speak out against something that I think all of us know intrinsically is wrong. If your boss made you work 24-hour mandatory overtime, and if your job is being surrounded by people that really want to do you harm, we know that's wrong at face value. But the Governor Hochul, because you spoke out on that, because you spoke out on the HALT Act, which has seen since its inception, inmate assaults up 169%, and inmate on staff assaults up 76%. If you spoke out against the safety in these prisons, and you spoke out against what a mandatory overtime that I think most of us can't even imagine was ever legal, then you deserve punishment, according to Governor Hochul, and that punishment is to never work in a state job again. The governor's office said the ban applies to state agencies, strips officers of their peace officer status, which they would have to reapply for, and suspend laws that promote mobility between state and local law enforcement positions for those individuals. As for how the state can safely operate prisons after losing a quarter of its workforce, Hochul said the administration will continue to rely on the National Guard. Again, the National Guard not signing up for this. You think about the college student who just wanted to pay for their college, joined the National Guard, and is now in a federal prison dealing with inmates. Hochul, this is a disaster the way she's handled this from the very beginning. But now to be vindictive and punish these officers that just that term is so perfect, that had to act out of desperation and had gotten so bad. Does anybody out there, and I'm not saying you may not have had to do it, I'm saying does anyone out there think that 24 to 36 hour mandatory overtime is fair? Do you think it's, and you can say, well, life isn't fair. I'm saying, do you think that it's safe? Do you think it should be legal? Because it's not in the regular workforce. We talk about OSHA, if they could get involved, but they can't because it's the state, and the state gets to play by their own rules. And when you don't accept those rules and you speak out against them, Governor Hochul does everything she can to punish you. As for whether she will support a push from Senate Republicans to have the National Guard activated federally to expand benefits, Hochul said no, claiming the state has worked to ensure officers have what they need after early reports of a lack of food, access to showers, and appropriate living arrangements. Additionally, both the Senate and Assembly released their one-house budget rebuttals Tuesday. As expected, no mention of the HALT Act or anything directly related to the demands of those on strike. Instead, the one-house budget both authorized the governor to close more prisons, which some officers have indicated will exacerbate issues by consolidating incarcerated people in cramped quarters and forcing officers to travel long distances to get to work amid already lengthy shifts. The Assembly limited the governor's authorization to a total of 5 prisons, including 2 that were closed as part of last year's budget, while the Senate allows the governor to close 5 on top of those 2 for a total of 7. Both houses concurred with the governor on mandating body-worn cameras in docks facilities, and the Senate adopted the governor's proposal to expand opportunities for earned time credit. They also agreed to grant the State Commission on Correction more oversight power, though the Assembly amended that proposal to include access to representation for both corrections officers and incarcerated people when being interviewed. All right, well, there you go. Assemblyman Phil Palmisano had this to say in regards to the news that Governor Hochul it's not good enough that they fire 2,000 corrections officers. Obviously, again and again, not showing the corrections officers the respect they deserve. But because they had the audacity to speak out about real safety issues, real safety concerns with the HALT Act and the mandatory overtime, because they had that audacity to sass her, she's punishing them. And this is what the Assemblyman had to say. You think Governor Hochul should have learned from her predecessor who abused his executive authority during COVID. The governor could have used her executive authority to declare a staffing and safety crisis inside our correctional facilities and actually suspend the dangerous HALT Act to protect the safety of our corrections officers and inmates alike inside our prisons. Instead, she is grossly abusing her executive authority to extract retribution and just further our corrections officers even more by trying to devastate any potential future employment opportunities they may have. Shame on her. She should rescind this now. No, she likes it. She believes the optics on this is her being tough, her being forceful. I mean, think of the language that she used there. That there's consequences for your action for having the audacity to speak out. There's consequences for your actions, and you can no longer work in the state workforce. As she is, again, holding roundtables with laid off federal employees with Doge, because of Doge, trying to hire them into the state workforce. Now, hundreds of corrections officers flooded the state Supreme Court for a hearing on the Taylor law. State Department of Corrections and Community Supervision officials, along with officials with a union that backs corrections officers, well, that's arguable, were on hand for a contempt hearing. Right now, anyone who is still on strike could face charges and could be held in contempt regarding the state's Taylor law, which, among other things, prevents state employees from striking. So the different set of rules that we learn so much about when it comes to the state. Imagine if Governor Hochul heard about a business that made their employees work 26 to 36 hours, mandatory overtime, that weren't safe conditions. She would be able to make a press conference about it, get some attention, but instead she makes the rules and you can't break them. The New York Post editor, and we're not going to talk about this all morning. There's just a couple of updates on this. And then we've got a couple other New York State updates. I see a lot of comments coming in. But the New York Post editorial board said Governor Hochul has ended the state prison guard strike, but the larger crisis is far from over. For starters, she fired more than 2,000 who refused to end the illegal strike. That leaves some prisons operating at just 25% of normal staffing levels and staff working 12-hour shifts. So when there was already, one of the reasons they started the strike was because of the mandatory overtime, because they were overworked and there wasn't enough staff. Now that has only been exacerbated. So 6,500 National Guard troops will remain deployed at prisons indefinitely though most guardsmen will happily tell you they're not remotely trained for this. Meanwhile, the rank and file have plainly lost faith in their union leadership, having rejected the union's first deal with the governor, leaving her to simply declare a somewhat better settlement on her own and then axe whatever guards refuse to go back to work under it. Even then, the returnees didn't reach the 85% mark she declared was necessary for her offer to stick, though she means to largely follow through anyway. So yeah, why? Yeah, she set that 85%, didn't make it. Oh, well. Never mind about the safety in the prisons. She does not like the optics. She has also partly suspended for 90 days the ban on solitary confinement, which was one of the strikers' main grievances, and is addressing other complaints by boosting pay and ending 24-hour shifts. But will the legislature go along? It demanded the end to solitary by passing the HALT Act without offering some replacement way to adequately discipline inmates who engage in violence against staff and other prisoners. Indeed, the progressives driving the no solitary train don't really believe in prisons or policing in the first place, all of which leaves a high risk of some future explosion, a prison riot, another wildcat strike, or something else breaking bad. More storm clouds on New York's horizon thanks to progressives' refusal to face reality and Hochul's endless effort to split the difference. Yes, this is very much like to fund the police. They don't believe in the police. They don't believe in law enforcement, and they fight against it. And that's what's the problem is with one-party rule in Albany, because Governor Hochul, even if she were to come out and try to repeal this, they could fight back on that and get the HALT Act through because of the far-left progressives in Albany. So that's an update. We do have some other New York updates as well. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
Attention, Elmeron may lead to vision loss.
If you have suffered vision problems after taking Elmeron to treat bladder pain, call the Hearn Law Firm. Elmeron may be responsible for your vision problems, and you may deserve compensation for your injuries.
If you took Elmeron and now have vision problems, call the Hearn Law Firm at 888-308-3866 right now. You could find out if you qualify in less than 2 minutes. Call 888-308-3866 for your free case review.
I have diabetes, but I manage it well. It's a little pill with a big story to tell. I take once daily Jardians at each day start. As time went on, it was easy to see I'm lowering my A1C.
And for adults with type 2 diabetes and known heart disease, Jardians can lower the risk of cardiovascular death too.
Serious side effects include increased ketones in blood or urine, which can be fatal. Stop Jardians and call your doctor right away if you have nausea, vomiting, stomach pain, tiredness, trouble breathing, or increased ketones. Jardians may cause dehydration that can suddenly worsen kidney function and make you feel dizzy, lightheaded, or weak upon standing. Genital yeast infections in men and women, urinary tract infections, low blood sugar, or a rare life-threatening bacterial infection between and around the anus and genitals can occur. Call your doctor right away if you have fever or feel weak or tired and pain, tenderness, swelling, or redness in the genital area. Don't use if allergic to Jardians. Stop use if you have a serious allergic reaction. Call your doctor if you have rash, swelling, difficulty breathing, or swallowing. You may have increased risk for lower limb loss. Call your doctor right away if you have new pain or tenderness, sores, ulcers, or infection in your legs or feet.
Jardians is really swell, the little pill with a big story to tell.
Every day Ebony K. Williams presides is another day when right prevails over wrong.
I can tell what happened to you, sir, because I was born at night, not last night.
Equal Justice with Judge Ebony K. Williams.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. Welcome back as we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. We've got a lot of comments coming in. I didn't get a chance to get to all of them to paste them in the same place, so we will read your comments here in just a little bit. So please don't think I'm skipping anybody's. But the first one that I will read, Mark writes in, if Hochul says there are consequences for breaking the law, how come Cuomo is not in jail for killing people? And that's in reference to the nursing home tragedy where he allowed COVID-positive patients in nursing homes that led to thousands of deaths. Very good point, Mark. I'm going to read your other ones. I'm sorry, there's a lot that came in. I just didn't have a chance because, if I'm being honest, I ran to get some tea. Okay. Hochul is pushing what she calls bell-to-bell, no phone agenda in schools. I'm not going to compromise our children's health. A lot of tough talk from Hochul for someone that's never really that tough on the issues. As the New York Post put it when it came to the prison strike, she's always trying to split the difference and always trying to appease the far left because she knows she's not like Cuomo, who will fight any party to get his way. She doesn't have it in her. So she has to kind of put on this fake bravado and act as if she is very tough. That's why there's consequences for these corrections officers. That's why she's going to fight Trump, because she wants you, and she knows New Yorkers want to be taxed. Hardworking New Yorkers want to be taxed in the congestion pricing. She's tough on that one too, at least tough language. Fighting for your pleasure of having to pay tax, thinking that she said New Yorkers are not going to like what Trump tells them to do. I don't think too many New Yorkers are begging to pay more taxes. But she said, what a radical concept. The thought that students should be there paying attention to their teachers and interacting with each other, and not these all day, meaning the phone, long, phenomenally destructive distractions which have now taken over children's childhood and also the classroom environment. Again, just the language that she uses, where she tries to be, I don't know, better at it than she is. We'll put it that way. But Senate Democrats are already watering it down. So we'll see if Governor Hochul has that fight in her. Backers of Hochul's proposed bell-to-bell ban on the use of smartphones in schools are calling out Democrats in the state Senate for pushing to water down the proposal. Hochul's plan would forbid students from using smartphones during the entire school day, but the Senate's proposed budget resolution would only ban cell phone usage during classroom or instructional time, meaning that they could use it during their lunch breaks and things like that. I do think it's interesting. And I point to this, not that I think it's an important issue, but I point to it because in her budget, she proposed $13.5 million to push this ban, when I think everybody would agree, just ban it. The Senate proposal would leave it to school districts to determine whether or not they want to outlaw cell phone usage outside the classroom or during non-instructional periods. Quote, we are very disappointed by the New York State Senate watering down the governor's cell phone proposal to make it almost meaningless, said Phone Free New York founder Raj Goyal. The kids of New York desperately need protecting from their screens to protect their mental health and learning at school. We will work tirelessly to advocate for a bell-to-bell ban that is the only way to truly help our kids. Many schools in the state already have a policy forbidding cell phone use during class time only, according to those who support the more extensive all-day school ban. Hochul, too, said Tuesday she is committed to fighting for a bell-to-bell smartphone ban. That is what the experts say. This is what parents want. This is what teachers want. As soon as the far left in Albany start pushing back on her, she'll cave. She can talk tough at a press conference or in front of her supporters. It's a lot different when she has to go in for the fight. That's why she uses the fake bravado. All right. Also on New York politics. Oh, let me take a break. Then we'll read your comments. There's a couple other New York politics issues. Then we're going to get to Trump. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox.
Ever feel like a spectator in your own life with chronic migraine? 15 or more headache days a month, each lasting 4 hours or more. Botox prevents headaches in adults with chronic migraine. In a survey, 91% of users wish they'd started sooner. So why wait? Talk to your doctor.
Botox effects may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away, as trouble swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness can be signs of a life-threatening condition. Those with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Side effects may include allergic reactions like rash, breathing problems, dizziness, neck and injection site pain, and headache. Don't receive Botox if there's a skin infection. Tell your doctor your medical history, muscle or nerve conditions like ALS, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medicines like botulinum toxins, which may increase the risk of serious side effects.
Chronic migraine may still keep you from being there. Ask your doctor about Botox today. Learn how AbbVie can help you save.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Acom. And how can we help like that in our small businesses, not to sound cliche, but are the backbone of our community? Let's talk about thanks, as always, to you, the viewers, for sending in your texts and your voicemails. Now we go to a comment. This is from John in Elmira. Make sure to catch Frankly Speaking only on AM Big Fox News WYDC or visit our website at WYDCTV.com. Elmira. Horseheads. Hornell. Bath. Watkins Glen. Big Fox 10 p.m. News, the first primetime local news in the Twin Tiers. Catch news from your area, weather forecasts, and local events. And visit our website at WYDCTV.com anytime to stay up to date on weather, news articles, and local events. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We're back with Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hasselson studio. Thank you for joining us. We're talking about many issues this morning, but most of the comments here on the corrections officer strike. Let's go to Pete writes, I think Hochul's striking guards from future state employment is reminiscent of Stalin's purge of the Soviet Red Army during the 1937-1938 Great Terror. Like Stalin, she's applying terroristic tactics to enforce a loyalist state workforce and recruiting fired federal workers to this workforce is just another aspect of this. She might not be as stupid as I thought. Thank you very much. Comment from a different viewer. The prison guard issue brings to light the bigger issue of Hochul's fiscal irresponsibility. Comment from a different viewer. When I owned a business, Workman's Comp, or let me try that again. When I owned a business, Workman's Comp made it quite clear they did not want us working overtime as accident levels increased due to worker fatigue, not to mention the increased rate of Workman Comp when working overtime. This cost goes directly to the taxpayer. Thank you very much. Yeah, obviously, and that's one of the things that we've talked about on this program, obviously that it's a powder keg atmosphere when you are surrounded by people that want to see you harmed or harm others, when you are now on a 24-hour shift. I've talked to a few people about this. You're so tired, you're burnt out. Think about you when you maybe had trouble sleeping, or you were stressed and you couldn't sleep for 24 hours. And you get at wit's end. You've lit the fuse, you've got a hot temper, and it just creates such a bad environment. So I agree. Thank you. Ken writes in, I just had an earth-shattering idea on how to handle the guard understaffing issue, satisfy the Democrats' desire to close prisons, and turn New York Republican. We just need to turn to the political visionaries in Hollywood. Have you ever seen the movie Escape from New York? Well, thank you very much, Ken. Very good point. Of course, Escape from New York. Thank you. Comment from a different viewer. This Punisher attitude will be the undoing of Governor Hochul's future employment abilities also. Yeah, this idea of, again, it's more than two-prong. But when you have Governor Hochul tough on our corrections officers that keep us safe, when she's tough talks, I'm just going to have trouble with that word, those words all day. I'm going to keep trying to use them. When she's talking tough about the corrections officers and about making sure that you keep that tax on congestion pricing in New York, are those winning issues? I mean, you saw the community outreach for our corrections officers who were on strike. Do you think that's a winning attitude? And now to punish them, like Assemblyman Phil Palmisano said, shame on her. She should rescind that immediately. To say your punishment for having the audacity to speak out about safety issues in the prison, as an act of desperation because it was so bad, your punishment is now to never be able to work in the state workforce again, as we're hiring federal government employees who were laid off because of Doge. I know, it's a frustrating topic. Comment from a different viewer regarding the COs. They did not break the law. I think Hochul is twisting what is put into union contracts, more specifically a no-strike clause. Thank you very much. Also on the New York level, 160 Democrat lawmakers, officials, and activists have drafted a letter to party leaders opposing ex-Governor Andrew Cuomo's comeback bid for New York City mayor and urging them to do the same. Brooklyn Bureau President Antonio Reynoso and 13 other liberal lawmakers, including Democrat Socialist of America members, were among the signees to the letter, which comes little more than a week after Cuomo officially jumped in the race and immediately attained front-runner status. Quote, after corruption cases derailed Mayor Eric Adams' administration, New York City needs a mayor who will focus on the needs of our city, not his own legal battles, obsession with power, and self-centered political comeback. Ooh. The letter was signed by City Council member Tiffany Cabin, State Senators Julia Salazar and Jabari Brisport, and about 150 district leaders, state committee members, county committee members, and Democratic clubs. The Stop Cuomo Coalition did not say who they are backing in the crowded primary race for mayor, but the letter cited Cuomo's baggage and scandals, including his resignation as governor in 2021 when he stepped down under the threat of impeachment following a slew of sexual misconduct accusations. The critics also cited investigations that included Cuomo intentionally undercounting thousands of COVID-19 deaths of nursing home residents, resulting from his policy of forcing nursing facilities to accept recovering COVID patients discharged from the hospital. They also complained that he used state resources to write his $5 million profit-making book about his leadership during the pandemic. The anti-Cuomo Democrats said, now is the time for Democrat leaders to show our constituents that we are the party of integrity, accountability, respect, transparency, and inclusivity. We must have a vision for a brighter future based on the new idea and fresh thinking, not nostalgia for a broken era and failed leadership that created many of the problems we face today. And we must govern in a way that builds trust and shows how government can be a force for good in people's lives. For these reasons and more, we oppose Andrew Cuomo's campaign for mayor of New York City, and we urge all of our Democrat colleagues to pledge the same. Now, Rich, as a party who is Cuomo's campaign spokesperson, said, it's a clear, desperate reaction to the governor who's only been in the election for 10 days, leading the endorsement race. New Yorkers see right through these silly AstroTurf stunts, and they know Andrew Cuomo had the record of accomplishments, the skill, and the experience to save the city in crisis. And final New York issue, Claudia Tenney and Nick Langworthy. Claudia Tenney is pushing a bill, and Congressman Nick Langworthy is a co-sponsor, to override New York's SAFE Act, the law banning certain assault. How do you like this for a loaded article? This is coming from New York State Politics. The law banning certain assault weapons and limiting magazine capacity. Many Republicans have been vocal about their displeasure of it. More than a decade later, it's a battle that continues. It's called the Second Amendment Guarantee Act, Claudia Tenney said about a bill she recently introduced. Many state and federal Republicans, including Tenney, have worked to repeal the 2013 state law. They're hopeful they have now found a way. And quote, and what it does is preserve and protect our Second Amendment rights and prevent states from overstepping their boundaries, like the New York SAFE Act. Now, I'm not going to go through the history of the SAFE Act. You know about the SAFE Act. The Second Amendment Guarantee Act, or SAGA, reintroduced this year by Tenney, would ensure that states are prohibited from banning the manufacture or sale, importation, or possession of any rifle or shotgun that is lawfully permitted under federal law. It would not repeal the SAFE Act, but it would, in essence, override it. It chased our great businesses like Remington Arms and other gun manufacturers. It took away from our economy, Tenney said. The bill has been around D.C. for quite a few years with no real shot at passing. However, when you take a look at the power in Washington today, there is a possibility. President Trump certainly has been friendly to the gun rights community and pretty much happy to go along with whatever they prefer to do, with an exception or two, said Robert Spitzer, a distinguished service professor in the political science department of SUNY Cortland. While he does believe the bill's best chance to land on the president's desk is now, he does not believe it will get that far. Supporters could lose votes or not get the number of votes they need because it is a question of how much power the federal government should have versus the states. Many conservatives believe that the federal government simply is too powerful. All right, there's your updates. Whew. All right. We've got, feel free to weigh in on more on the corrections officer strike. I know it's a timely topic, but also to see Governor Hochul officially declare, just on a whim, by herself, declare that the strike is over, then fired 2,000 officers, and now corrections officers, and now says that those correction officers can never, as a consequence, can never work in the state workforce again, even though when it seems like that's her biggest goal, is hiring as many state workers as possible. But I did want to mention, as an update from yesterday's program, that Colombia anti-Israel agitator that ICE arrested, and they're looking into deporting him because he was producing pro-Hamas propaganda flyers. And now when that happened after his arrest, there was huge demonstrations in the street. About a dozen protesters were cuffed as they clashed with NYPD officers during a demonstration in support of Muhammad Khalid. Cops swarmed in to make arrests after throngs of protesters blocked a downtown Manhattan street, despite repeated warnings from police to clear the roadway. One rabble-rouser, anti-Semitic rabble-rouser, was tackled to the ground by a pair of officers during the arrest. One protester taunted, "Move, cops, get out the way. We know you're Israeli trained." I'll never lose my fascination with how bad some of these chants can be. Cops blared a message on the loop warning protesters if they remained in the roadway, they were going to be arrested and slapped with disorderly conduct. The NYPD said late Tuesday, one person was hit with disorderly conduct and obstructing government administration charges, and another 11 were issued summonses. So large protests in the street, these anti-Israel, anti-Semitic, anti-American protests. Protesters yelled there is only one solution, intifada, revolution. That's another chant. The group was trying to make speeches in front of the federal courthouse in the middle of the street, but were ordered by the NYPD to keep moving. When the protests tried to enter City Hall Park, cops blocked marchers and forced them to turn around before the chaos unfolded. We had politicians weighing in on this that we'll get to when we come back. We got to take a short break, and we'll read your comments as well. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back.
Have you been unable to work for over a year due to a mental or physical disability?
Were you recently denied Social Security disability benefits? Great news. You may be eligible for money, back pay, relief.
If you've been pre-qualified and diagnosed with a recognized condition that prohibits you from working, our lawyers can file a claim to get your disability benefit.
Call us today and find out more.
Call now, 844-617-0440.
I have type 2 diabetes, but I manage it well. It's a little pill with a big story to tell. I take once daily, Jardians, at each day start. As time went on, it was easy to see. I'm lowering my A1C.
And for adults with type 2 diabetes and known heart disease, Jardians can lower the risk of cardiovascular death too.
Serious side effects include increased ketones in blood or urine, which can be fatal. Stop Jardians and call your doctor right away if you have nausea, vomiting, stomach pain, tiredness, trouble breathing, or increased ketones. Jardians may cause dehydration that can suddenly worsen kidney function and make you feel dizzy, lightheaded, or weak upon standing. Genital yeast infections in men and women, urinary tract infections, low blood sugar, or a rare life-threatening bacterial infection between and around the anus and genitals can occur. Call your doctor right away if you have fever or feel weak or tired, and pain, tenderness, swelling, or redness in the genital area. Don't use if allergic to Jardians. Stop use if you have a serious allergic reaction. Call your doctor if you have rash, swelling, difficulty breathing, or swallowing. You may have increased risk for lower limb loss. Call your doctor right away if you have new pain or tenderness, sores, ulcers, or infection in your legs or feet.
Jardians is really swell, the little pill with a big story to tell.
Every Judge Mathis presides,
Don't you ever form your mouth to talk to me like that.
is another day when someone gets what they deserve.
What's wrong with you?
Mathis Court with Judge Mathis.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Let's go to some viewer comments. Define an assault weapon. So your Ruger 1022 you used to hunt squirrel is now an assault weapon. Assault is a verb, not a noun. And that was the point I was trying to make, that you knew that there's a bias in that piece when they use the term assault weapon. It's the same as, someone is not pushing the conversation on quote-unquote gun control from a place of good faith when they use the terms like assault weapon. So if a bill is put forth or a politician starts talking about assault weapons or a media outlet starts talking about assault weapons, they have already shown their hand and who they are and what their beliefs on the Second Amendment are. So you're exactly right. Thank you. Comment from a different viewer. Why have the feds not gotten involved with Governor Hochul's obvious strong-arming? Had that been a corporation, they would have been all over it. Yeah, or Governor Hochul would have been all over it. If a corporation would have said, you have to work these mandatory 24-hour shifts, you're in unsafe working conditions, Hochul, the feds would have been all over it. But because the state's in charge, the same rules don't apply to them. We were talking about Muhammad Khalil, the anti-Israel demonstrator being arrested. Chuck Schumer said, I abhor many of the opinions and policies that Muhammad Khalil holds and supports, and have made my criticism of the anti-Semitic actions at Columbia loudly known. Mr. Khalil is also legal permanent resident here, and his wife, who is 8 months pregnant, is an American citizen. While he may well be in violation of various campus rules regarding how the protests were conducted last year, that is a matter for the university to pursue, and I've encouraged them to be much more robust in how they combat anti-Semitism and maintain a harassment-free campus that protects the safety and security of Jewish and other students. The Trump administration's DHS must articulate any criminal charges or facts that would justify his detention or the initiation of deportation proceedings against him. If the administration cannot prove he has violated any criminal law to justify taking this severe action and is doing it for the opinions he has expressed, then that is wrong. They are violating the First Amendment protections we all enjoy and should drop their wrong-headed action. Former Governor Cuomo says the fear and terror stoked by many organizers on campus property against their Jewish classmates, in some cases condoning and supporting the terrorist organization Hamas, destroying personal and public property, and harassing Jewish students is, and let's call it by its name, anti-Semitism. And I unequivocally condemn it. Constitutional rights are preeminent, and facts and evidence must be presented and weighed. There are real questions about the wider implications of this detainment, and the federal government and the courts need to be clear with the public about the justification for their position and actions. The rule of law matters, and we must never forget that regardless of the political view expressed, however abhorrent. Now, Governor Hochul and Mayor Adams have both declined to comment on the arrest of, and this is going back to that point about the assault weapons. The article is biased if they use the term assault weapons. The article is biased if they call them pro-Palestinian protesters. And that's exactly what they did here. Pro-Palestinian Columbia protesters. So they refused to respond. AOC and other New York progressives have called for Muhammad Khalil's release in a letter to DHS. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and more than a dozen other New York elected officials have signed on to a letter calling for the immediate release of Muhammad Khalil, the Columbia University graduate student who was arrested by Immigration and Customs Enforcement in retaliation for his involvement, are you ready, in, quote, pro-Palestinian protests. You've got to call it what it is, or you've lost all credibility in your piece. It's anti-Israel, anti-Semitic protests. And as Ilya Shapiro and Daniel DiMartino for the New York Post write, 6 weeks into the second Trump administration and days after President Trump vowed to push back on illegal protests on college campuses, the State Department has pulled the first visa of foreign student disruptors, while Immigration and Customs Enforcement arrested a legal permanent resident, green card holder, who engaged in pro-Hamas college chaos. That's the right thing to do if we want to fix campus culture. And contrary to the misinformed or disingenuous critics, it poses no First Amendment problems. After ICE agents detained Muhammad Khalil, Democrat backlash followed. And I don't have to go through all of the various comments. You saw it from Schumer and you saw it from AOC. Indeed, it's a basic application of U.S. Let me take a step back. Not only is Khalil Syrian, not a Palestinian, the Democrats are wrong about both the principle and the application of the law in this case. Indeed, it's a basic application of U.S. immigration law, which says that people here on a visa, tourist, student, employment, or otherwise, who reveal themselves to be ineligible for that visa, inadmissible, in the parlance of the Immigration and Nationality Act, can have their visa revoked. Even President Biden's State Department once told then-Senator Marco Rubio that it could revoke the visas of Hamas supporters. Holders of temporary visas, like students who are deemed ineligible, generally do not get a hearing or anything beyond an administrative order that can't be challenged. Green card holders, like Khalil, on the other hand, are entitled to appear before an immigration judge who must determine that the government has met the burden of proof to make the person deportable. There is no doubt that the pro-Hamas protests on college campuses across the country are detrimental to the foreign policy goals of America, which include protecting the state of Israel, one of America's closest allies. In Khalil's case, we don't know the details of the due process he's been given, such as the serving of a notice to appear in front of an immigration judge. But one thing is clear, the executive branch has the authority to vet non-citizens based on their views, thanks to the laws Congress has passed and the Supreme Court has upheld. We don't have to go through the whole history of this, but there's nothing objectionable or controversial about removing those who harass, intimidate, vandalize, and otherwise interfere with an educational institution's core mission. More, please. They write there from the Manhattan Institute. Michael Goodwin said the Democrats defending the Columbia anti-Israel agitator, Muhammad Khalil, is yet another example of how they, meaning the Democrats, and elite schools have failed Jewish students. Watching Democrats try on different arguments to thwart Donald Trump, I'm reminded of a story involving the late Indiana basketball coach Bobby Knight. After John Feinstein wrote an unflattering portrait of Knight, he responded by attacking the author mercilessly. In one barrage, Knight called him both, well, I can't even use the terms. So it's with Democrats as they search desperately for a way to rally the public against Trump. Their only guiding light, to be against whatever he is for, is creating confusion, contradictions, and leading them even deeper into political parody. And we saw that in the speech in front of the joint sessions, how it doesn't matter what Trump is for, they have to be against it. That's why they didn't stand up and clap for DJ, the 13-year-old cancer survivor. I don't want to get into the whole piece that Michael Goodwin gets to. But as he said, just remember that the schools have only themselves to blame for all this, for letting this run amok, for letting down their Jewish students, for allowing other students to harass, intimidate, threaten Jewish students, and then hold these protests. And really many of the administrators that have gotten in trouble, there's not many, but the ones that did, it's because they had the audacity to call the police on the encampments, not because they let these protests grow. But I do hear the Corning whistle. Love to hear more on your thoughts on the correction officer strike and Governor Hochul's new vindictiveness of punishing those that went on strike and that they fired the 2,000 no longer allowed to work in the state workforce. She said, never again. Your thoughts on that? We're going to go through some Trump stories and updates quickly. Also like to hear your opinion on all the issues of the day. So keep those comments coming in. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us.
This was our last chance to show who our son was. I can't say enough about pre-planning. When you are in those moments, you are not thinking clearly.
We showed up for the remembrance and we walked in and we just, wow.
It was arranged perfectly. Yeah. I certainly could not have done that in that moment. So to have those pre-conversations, it's really important.
Visit carpentersphillipsflint.com to learn more about our family-owned funeral homes.
There are days I feel stuck in my head. Even on an antidepressant, lingering depression symptoms can make it hard to break through. I wanted more from my antidepressant. I asked about Vraylar. Adding Vraylar to an antidepressant significantly reduces overall depression symptoms better than an antidepressant alone.
Vraylar isn't approved for elderly patients with dementia-related psychosis due to increased risk of death or stroke. Report changes in behavior or suicidal thoughts to your doctor. Antidepressants can increase these in children and young adults. Report fever, stiff muscles, or confusion, which may be life-threatening, or uncontrolled muscle movements, which may be permanent. High blood sugar, which can lead to coma or death. Weight gain and high cholesterol may occur. Difficulty moving, tremors, slow or uncontrolled body movements, restlessness and feeling like you need to move, nausea, constipation, insomnia, dizziness, increased appetite, and fatigue are common. Side effects may not appear for weeks.
Vraylar, breaking through to relief. Ask about.
The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Comment from Mark. He says, ponder this idea. How about those 2,000 corrections officers, those 2,000 guards, join ICE and help Trump remove illegals? Boy, that would shame Hochul and help the guards. I think that's a great idea. Can you imagine? They get better paying jobs. Boy, that would be it. Imagine that. Talk about defeating Hochul on that issue. That's a great idea. We were mentioning whether it's through these anti-Israel protests, where, it goes back to what Van Jones said, that there's this marbling in the Democrat Party of anti-Semitism. So they've had a lot of mixed reactions to this arrest, kind of twisting themselves up into a pretzel. It's as and who was it? Was it Michael Goodwin? As he said that it's created confusion, contradictions, and leading them ever deeper into political parody. And according to Politico's Alina Schneider, Democrats are in deep, deep trouble. That's according to their own internal polling. Again, it's coming from Politico. No conservative outlet, that's for sure. The Democrat Party's brand is in rough shape in the congressional battlegrounds, Schneider wrote. Nearly 2 months into the second Donald Trump administration, a majority of voters in battleground House districts still believe Democrats in Congress are, quote, more focused on helping other people than people like me, according to an internal poll conducted by the Democrat group Navigator Research. Among independents, just 27% believe Democrats are focused on helping them. 27%, folks, compared with 55% who said they're focused on others. Democrat pollster Molly Murphy is quoted in the Politico piece as saying while voters were somewhat critical of Trump in some spots, the Democrats have serious damage to fix with their own brand before voters trust them in government again. Murphy and others from Navigator, which is part of a Democrat nonprofit, the Hub Project, are expected to present these polling numbers to House Democrats at their issues conference later this week. Quote, the Democrat brand is still not where it needs to be in terms of core trust and understanding people's challenges. I like that term. Where is still not where it needs to be. You mean from just November when they lost in a landslide? Yeah, I didn't think they made up a lot of ground since November. Even though voters are critical about Trump and some of the things he's doing, that criticism of Trump doesn't translate into trust in Democrats. The trust has to be earned. Other numbers in the poll that are even worse for Democrats, a majority, 56% of those surveyed, said Democrats are not looking out for working class people. 56%. Only 42% said they shared values with Democrats, and just 39% said Democrats value work, and just 44% said that Democrats respect work. 39% said Democrats have the right priorities as a party. 39%. And that's coming from far left Politico and a Democrat pollster organization. So I thought they tied in well together with that story that we brought to you about not knowing how to create their message really on any of Trump's initiatives. I've mentioned on the show, but it seems like by the time they craft their message on one of the things that Trump has done, he's already 10 steps ahead doing 10 other things, 10 other executive orders or speeches or interviews. Now, of course, their big topic is the tariffs. Trying to scare you. We had that great piece, and you can find it for yourself in the New York Post yesterday, saying don't let the stock market worry you when it comes to this quote-unquote trade war. And it was a really interesting piece, but the media is hitting on the Dow dropping, falling nearly 500 points, as Trump ramps up the Canada trade war. The Dow Jones Industrial Average on Tuesday fell by nearly 600 points before paring back some of its losses at the start of trading on Tuesday. one day after it plunged by nearly 900 points. I'm not going to read all those numbers. You know those numbers if they are important to you. Now, Ontario Premier Doug Ford announced Tuesday that Canada's most populous province was suspending its 25% surcharge. We'll talk about that when we come back because I don't want to run too late. We got to wrap up today's edition, so get those last-minute comments in. I know we had a little trouble technical-wise at the beginning of the program, so I'm so glad you stayed with us and you were patient. I think we've had a great show so far. So let's go out with a bang, get those last comments in, and we'll be right back with Frankly Speaking.
If you or a loved one regularly used hair relaxers or straighteners and were diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, you may be entitled to significant financial compensation.
I've used hair relaxers for years. I had no idea they could cause cancer.
Chemical hair relaxers and straighteners have been linked to serious conditions, including several types of cancer. If you used hair relaxers and have been diagnosed with uterine, ovarian, or endometrial cancer, call us now. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call today.
Every year, millions fly with us at Allegiant because together, we go places. We see old friends and try new things. We laugh. We really like to laugh. And reconnect. We remember. And we wander, which leads to wonder. From how we go to where we go to what we do when we get there, we go further together.
Let the dark days of winter and have a vacation from taxation with the Hustlesense Hot Tub. What better way to start or end every day than with hot water therapy in your very own Hustlesense Hot Tub? With every spot purchase, Hustlesense guarantees great customer satisfaction and the best service team in the area. Plus, with Hustlesense Vacation from Taxation sales event, free steps, free cover lifter, free music, and 0% interest-free financing. Ask about Hustlesense Chemical Auto Ship program and save even more. Stop in today and see why after 70 years it's still fun to poke in the corners at Hustle.
Our beautiful view of historic Market Street, brought to you by Boss Security. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio, wrapping up today's edition of Frankly Speaking. I mentioned Ontario did suspend the 25% electricity surcharge for U.S. customers after Trump ups the aluminum and steel tariff. In a statement on X, Ontario Premier Doug Ford said he had a productive conversation with Howard Lutnick, and the two would meet in Washington Thursday alongside U.S. Trade Representative Jamison Greer. Ford said he would discuss a renewed USMCA with Lutnick and Greer, referring to the North American Trade Agreement signed during Trump's first term. In response, Ontario agreed to suspend its 25% surcharge on exports of electricity to Michigan, New York, and Minnesota. He also said he apologized to the American people for the fallout from the ongoing trade negotiations and called for an end to the chaos to save millions of jobs. I want to apologize to the American people. I spent 20 years of my life in the U.S., in New Jersey, in Chicago. I love the American people. I absolutely love them. He said, we're going to get through this. We're stronger together. We'll always be united. He said, I said this is chaos. We have to put an end to it. We have to sit down and move this tariff deal up from April. Talking about his conversation with Lutnick. I think the conversation between myself and Lutnick have saved millions of jobs on both sides of the border. Our real enemy is China. It's not each other. Do you remember, just as a side note, if you don't, and you want to go down a rabbit hole, do you remember his Doug Ford's brother, Rob Ford? Boy, I was in radio at the time, and that was a major topic that we continued to bring up time and time again. We'll just say his brother was notorious. He's a politician, Toronto Mayor Rob Ford. And we had mentioned this on the program once before, but that was an interesting story. I thought that at one time they were going to make a movie about his brother, but I guess that must have never happened. How are we doing on time? We're doing good. All right. Oh, I missed this comment from a viewer. Too bad Hochul is not as tough on criminals as she is corrections officers. Maybe New Yorkers would not be leaving. Yeah, I mean, that's what's so frustrating when she says you can't just break the law and get away with it. Why? So many do, daily, with things like bail reform. It's obviously one of the reasons why she did so poorly against Lee Zeldin. Yes, ultimately winning, but Lee Zeldin did great because he was hitting on public safety. That's why Richie Torres, who, by the way, is a defund the police Democrat, is trying to change his tune to primary her and now acts like he's Mr. Public Safety because people realize it's a winning issue. Because people are sick and tired of paying the high taxes in New York that they are and having to fear for their safety and their families' safeties. Just a quick update that came out yesterday. U.S. negotiations with Hamas were a one-off that hasn't borne any fruit, said Marco Rubio. It was a one-off situation that hasn't borne fruit. That was a one-off situation in which our special envoy for hostages, whose job it is to get people released, had an opportunity to talk directly to someone who has control over these people and was given permission and encouraged to do so. As of now, it hasn't borne fruit. Doesn't mean it was wrong to try. Oh, AOC got hit with an ethics complaint over a $4,550 payment for dance training, misusing taxpayer funds on dance training, allegedly. Americans for Public Trust, a private watchdog group that targets corruption, alleged that AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, tapped into her member representational allowance to shell out $3,700 to Juan Gonzalez, an $850 to Bombazo Dance Company, for what was described as training in December. That does it for us today. Thank you to everybody who joined us. We'll be back tomorrow morning starting at 6 a.m. with Frankly Speaking, only on WYDC TV. Big Fox, we will see you tomorrow morning bright and early. I look forward to it already.
Hustling plus overbooked plus bustling plus cleaning overlooked. It all adds up. With Mary Maid's professional cleaning services, you'll have one less thing to worry about. Mary Maid's. Relax. It's done. Plus too busy plus bustling plus in a tizzy. It all adds up. With Mary Maid's professional cleaning services, you'll have one less thing to worry about. Mary Maid's. Relax. It's done.
Ever feel a spectator in your own life with chronic migraine? 15 or more headache days a month, each lasting 4 hours or more. Botox prevents headaches in adults with chronic migraine. In a survey, 91% of users wish they'd started sooner. So why wait? Talk to your doctor.
Botox effects may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away, as trouble swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness can be signs of a life-threatening condition. Those with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Side effects may include allergic reactions like rash, breathing problems, dizziness, neck and injection site pain, and headache. Don't receive Botox if there's a skin infection. Tell your doctor your medical history, muscle or nerve conditions like ALS, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medicines like botulinum toxins, which may increase the risk of serious side effects.
Chronic migraine may still keep you from being there. Ask your doctor about Botox today. Learn how AbbVie can help you save.